Rabbi Sai, welcome back to Yerushalmi Orlah. We're nearly finishing Orlah, actually. We've got Bikurim and then Seder Moed coming. But anyway, Rabbanan de Kisrin. So we are Lamed Daled Amud Base, okay? Now we brought, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that whenever the Torah said Issa Achila, Rabbi Yochanan held it doesn't include Issa Hana. And we're going to bring what Rabbi Vol said, slightly different wording. And there are situations where Rabbi Yochanan will agree that Issa Achila will include Issa Hana. So Rabbanan de Kisrin, they brought the words Rabbi Vol B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, Kamakim Shema Loi Teichal, Loi Teichalu. If the Torah says don't eat that expression, Einat Teifis Issa Hana. We do not include not getting benefit, Issa Achila, like the Issa of eating. If, however, it says Loi Teiachal, Loi Yeachal, right, shall not be eaten, then our Teifis Issa Hana Issa Achila. Then we do add the Issa of getting benefit to the Issa of eating. And Binyan Avshabukulan, the source of this for all of them, where it says Lo Tayachel and includes this Hana, the Torah says, Kol Chatas, Asher Yuva Midama Alo Moed. Any chatos of the blood is brought to the Moed to provide a forgiveness, L'chape B'Kodesh, Lo Tayachel, it shall not be eaten and it has to be burnt. Ba'esh Tisorev. So not only you can't eat it, you have to burn it. So it's Asa B'Hana. So this is the Binyan Av, right? This is the source. For whenever you have that expression, any similar thing, it includes Issa Hana as well. Now, Chizkiah learns a brisa which brings a few drashas, and each one we can prove, like the view of Rabbi Yochanan, that Lo Teichal does not include Issa Hana. Taru Chizkiah b'Sayeh al Rabbi Yochanan supports Rabbi Yochanan. Mashal whenever it says Kol Chelev Shavar Kesler Ba'ez Lo Teichelu, the fats of these things you can't eat, these animals you can't eat. Le'ezed Davar Nemev. So why does it say V'Chelev Nevela V'Chelev Tereifa? When it comes to chaylev of nevela, a carry a dead animal, why does the Torah allow you to get benefit from it? But we already knew that it's also to eat. And Hana, we had no reason to forbid it. So why tell me you can use it for whatever you want? He's coming to tell you, that even for using for kodshim, you can use it. You're allowed to use it even for melachas gavaya, for things to do with kodshim, and that you don't have to worry for tumas nevela in such a case, right? Although nevela is an avatuma, maga masa, but the fat of nevela is not metame like meat of nevela, right? You can use it. Okay, now, and the fact that Brisa takes on quite straightforward that although it says lo tachelu, there's no source for Issa Hana. That's like Rabbi Yochanan. When the Issa says the Lashon like that, then it doesn't include Issa Hana. Then also, the fact that it says Rak Hadam lo tachelu, blood you mustn't eat. So why does it say Ala Aris Tishvachenu Kamayim? The Torah says that the blood can be spilled like water. You're allowed to get benefit from it. But we've never heard any reason why you shouldn't be allowed to get benefit. The Torah, why is it comparing blood to water to tell you? Just like water makes something susceptible to receive tumah, so blood also is one of the 7 liquids, right? So it makes things susceptible to receive tumah. Now again, the Brisa explains, Lo Techelu, the only problem of eating, no Issa Hana. That's another proof to Rabbi Yochanan. And then, there's more, Rabbi Say. The Torah says, Lo Techelu Kol Nevela. You mustn't eat a nevela. So if that's the case, there is a davar nema lager. Why does it say lager shebesharachal tidinali? You can give it to the ger, meaning not the Jewish ger, right? This is ger toshav, and he can eat it. You can get benefit from it. Why is it telling you can get benefit? And that he is allowed, the ger toshav is allowed to eat nevelas, right? He only takes on the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, right? He's allowed. He's not Jewish, so he's allowed to eat nevela, right? And the fact that Brisa says lo tachlu only forbids eating, so again it supports Rabbi Yochanan. And another one, b'mashma shenema, it says in the Torah, basar v'sada treifa lo tachelu, that an animal that's been torn apart, treifa, you can't eat it. Now, lezer davar nem. So why does it say you can throw it to the dog? Look at it, tashlichino, let's throw it to the dog, which tells you you can get benefit. It's telling you also that's one ata mashlich you can throw lachelem to the dog. The ata mashlich you cannot throw chulin shenishtu bazara chulin that was slaughtered in the azara. You're not allowed to get benefit from that. So from this drasha, like the previous 3 ones, the 3 drashas, it comes out the Torah says lo techelu is only issa eating. It doesn't include issa hana, and this is the support to the words of Rav Yochanan. Now, The Gemara brought Machlokas if Issa Achila includes Issa Hana. We said Rabbi Lezer holds Issa Achila includes Issa Hana, and Rabbi Yochanan, as the way Rabbanan the Kisran explained it, it depends what the wording is. Yeah, La Yeyachel includes Issa Hana, but La Teichal does not include Issa Hana. So now the Gemara brings a raya from a brisa. Let's see to these two views. Masnisa Masaya Ladain. We have as the brisa supporting Rabbi Lazar. Masnisa Masaya Ladain, a brisa supporting Rabbi Yochanan. Masnisa Masaya Rabbi Lazar. So he said it always includes Issa Hana, whatever the wording. La Ye'achel Chametz. You must need chametz. La'asos hamachil ka'ochel. Now listen to this. This is a chiddush here. La ye'achel chametz. La'asos, to equate the one who feeds chametz to others like the one eating it himself. Rabbi, so you ever heard of an issur feeding someone chametz? There may be, of course, like lifnei ivel, as you said, michshal, don't put a stumbling block. I get that, but you find with a makif and nikif, someone who cuts someone's hair with a blade, or the one who does the cutting or who creates a circle, whatever, is over like the one who's having it done. But we never found elsewhere giving someone chometz is an issur in chometz. But that's what it says here. The one who feeds chometz to others, like eating it himself. Is chayv kares like the one who eats it. You're telling me this did. Maybe it's just telling me you can't get benefit. It says, you mustn't eat chametz. That tells me that you mustn't get benefit. So why does he have another wording, you must not be eaten? We equate the dinner of the one who feeds it to the one who's eating. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia. This is the view of Rabbi Yoshia. From here you see, he learns lo teichel olav chametz included issa hana, and then he added that there's a separate issa on the one who feeds it as well. But he included issa hana from the wording of not to eat. And that's the support to Rabbi Lazar. Whenever issa achila includes issa hana. Right. Now the Gemara brings the continuation of the brisa, and we're going to bring the view of Rabbi Yitzchak. He argues on Rabbi Yoshia, and we're going to support Rabbi Yochanan now, the way the Rabbanan de Kisri learned. So that basically they said it depends what the wording is. Yeah, Lo Teiachel then includes the sana. Lo Teichel doesn't include the sana. Let's see. Rabbi Yitzchak Gomer, Eino Sarich. You don't have to come to learn that chayav the one who feeds like the one who eats. We can learn with Kavachomer. Ma'im Sharatzim, the issur of insects. Kalim, which is more lenient. There's no chores there. They're not asana. And yet, we treat the one who feeds it like the one who eats it. Right? He says according to that. This we learn from a pasuk. It says with Shratzim, lo tachlum. It's an extra word. We have other psukim saying you mustn't eat it. Lo tachlum is like lo ta'achilum. Right? Don't give them to eat. Right? You mustn't feed shratzim. You mustn't feed insects to others. So, therefore, if that's the case with chametz, hachama, which is more severe, in addition, as by machel koechel, surely will treat the one who feeds it like the one who eats it. So why does it say lo yachal chametz? It's extra wording to forbid benefit. Don't assume benefit is forbidden automatically. We need extra wording to forbid benefit. So what do you see? Begin to say lo yachal. It's only because it says that. If it just said lo teichel, I wouldn't have known benefits forbidden. Let's try me now klum. This is the support of Yochanan, according to the view of Rabbanan de Kisrin, that if it says lo yachal, it doesn't include benefit. It's not forbidden. Lo yachal, then benefit is forbidden as well. Okay, fine. Okay, let's carry on. Now, a garment which has been dyed with a dye of orlah, you can't get benefit. You need to burn it. So now we're going to discuss this now. An issur that came through dyeing. So the first question about dyeing that was done for avodah zara, shita. Now one thing is clear. En kakanesa. What's this? Yeah. If this is shita, this is if a land does not become forbidden if it was served for idols, if you didn't do a maisa through a person. But tzad surah, if you made an image, bekarka, in the land, in the ground, for the sake of idols, you made some sort of image. Nesa, the land gets forbidden to get benefits. At the time when you do a maisa in the land, then it's got a shape of avodah zarah, you can't get benefit. Now we start into our question now. Sava, you dyed something for the sake of an idol, Dava sheyesh by ruach chaim, an animal. Right? You painted a cow pink, right? For the sake of an idol. Now, if you bow down to the animal, then lo yasra, you've not forbidden it. An animal that's been served as an idol does not become forbidden for benefit unless you do an action. So the question is the Maisa Tzviya, the act of dying, is it like an action that becomes forbidden or not? Now we find you draw something in the ground is forbidden. Or maybe the dying is not really an action in the body of the thing, it's only a change of colour. It's like an appearance change. You follow? By the way, this idea of land being forbidden, Chofa Baboris, they talk about if you dig pits and so on, then avodah zarah can be chal on the land.
Like these white horses, you see.
It's not also unless you served it, you bowed down to it. Some say when you make the image for the sake of avodah zarah, the land is forbidden, even though you've not actually served it yet. Okay, what were you saying?
Well, like white horses, they carve into hillsides.
Yeah. The white horses.
So it's other worship.
Now, because you dyed something, it should be forbidden. Dyeing is not a mice in the actual item; it's just a change of color. So the one now turns to the Issa Hana because of dyeing with an Orlah dye. Mochin should savan. You've got pieces of wool, small pieces of wool, and you use them to fill up cushions. And you dyed them with a dye of Orlah, Tzricha. Well, that's a question now. That's a bit of a question. Is it also, like we learned with the garment, you dyed it with Orlah, or maybe it's different, it's not also, because you don't really get benefit from the dye because they're stuffing inside a cushion. You don't get to see them. And another suffix we have, Beged Gadol should savai, you got a big garment that you dyed it with a dye made of Orlah, Amanas Lachatcha, in order to cut it for the sake of cushion pieces. So how do we treat this now? Is it kumuzga? Is it like a garment which has got saras on it and the Kohen has to put it away? We're worried, he might touch it. Or is it like a garment which is muchlet, which has definitely got saras on? Is it like a temporary? Remember muska, you have a person who's quarantined for a period of time. So we're saying now this as well. So this garment, you're going to cut it into cushions. How do we treat it when it becomes these cushion pieces? Is it like musga, means it's a sort of quarantine? It's like a garment which has got saras where the Kohen is quarantining. Maybe it's a nega, maybe it's not. You wait and see what happens. Or is it like definite saras? Right? He says here, saras habeged. Remember the different colours. Is it green? Is it red? And then you have to bring it to the Kohen. If it's proper nega, you have to quarantine it for 7 days. And then the garment is tameh, asabahana. You have to take it outside the town. The 7th day, you go and check it again. If the nega has widened, then I'm afraid it's muchel, it's definite saras, and you have to burn it. If, however, it's not wide in the nega, then we wash the garment, and maybe if it removed the nega, you put it in the mikveh, and the garment is tahor. If the washing didn't remove the nega, then you have to put it for another quarantine for a week. And if after that they found, and I'm afraid nothing had changed, then you paskin that the garment is definite saras, and you have to burn it. But if the nega became smaller, or it became a bit, faded a bit, then you tear from the garment that part, and the rest of the garment is tar. So in Tabdina, if you're going to treat this garment, which is dyed with Orlah, and it's become now pieces in the cushion, kumuzga, then mutter, then you're allowed to use it to fit it as a cushion. However, in Tabdina, if you treat it kumuchlet, as a definite garment, then you won't be allowed to use it because you have to burn it. Now what about you dye a garment with a dye of Orlah and it caused the garment to get ruined? Tzavai, so you dyed a garment, v'chazar tzvai, and then you dyed it again, v'higdiach, and now the garment got ruined. What's the din? Naima, we can say, look, if you need the first dyeing, also, then it will be forbidden, the garment. And the second one didn't really cause the destruction. Although it caused the destruction, it doesn't remove the issur. V'im lav, but if there wasn't enough in the first one, and the second one was what you needed to dye it, now mutter, now it'll be permitted, because the garment wasn't improved by the dyeing. The first one wasn't enough, and the second one just ruined it. Okay? Now another situation where dyeing a garment with orlah can cause trouble. You dye it with a shell, a walnut shell of chulin, and then you went and dyed it with, let's say, walnut shell of orlah, and the second dyeing ruined it. What's the din of the garment? The one who holds that Isurim that are going into a heter and they ruin the taste, they don't forbid it. So here's one mutter the garment will be permitted, because the dyeing of orlah ruined it. But also, if you hold giving a bad taste is forbidden, so here as well also will be forbidden. Although if the taste got ruined, it will still be forbidden. Now, what about a din of bittul now, with a garment that's dyed with dye of orlah? Savai. You dyed part of a garment, beklipe egois, with a dye made from sort of walnut shells, shel orlah, and also walnut shells of chulin, and there wasn't enough in the chulin to be mevatel the isur. So you used various dyes from various places. And then you dyed another part of the garment, beklipe rimoin shel chulin, with another part of dye from a pomegranate of chulin. So now what's the din? So you've got 3 dyes on this garment. You've got an isur dye and you've got 2 permitted dyes. Okay? So the question is, do the 2 permitted dyes join up to nullify the forbidden dye? Yeah? Do the 2 colours of heter, the walnut dye and the pomegranate dye, do they mevatel the colour of the walnut of orlah or not? Yeva Kauda, this din can be like a similar case we find in Trumas, the name of Yeshua. So we had, do you remember this? You had these barrels of the figs, and then there's barrels of figs, and the figs are at the top, and figs are at the bottom, and they all got mixed up, and so on. And there's truma all over, and we don't know where it is. So Igule Devela, you have these pressed fig cakes of chulin, and some of them are big, and some of them are small. And then you have a pressed fig cake of truma somewhere. It might be big, it might be small. Now, although you don't have enough in the heter, same size to be mabatel it, but nevertheless the mixture is permitted. Why? Because hagadalim, the big ones of chulin, join up with the small ones, or malin es hakatanim, and they nullify the small ones of truma. And hakatanim, the small ones of chulin, join up with the big ones, umalin es hagadalim, and then nullify the big ones of truma. Now, although you could easily distinguish between the big ones and the small ones, and some of the rings here are not really in the mixture, why should assume that a small ring will nullify a big ring? Yeah, why should you assume that? Nevertheless, they join up to a share which is needed to be mevatel truma, and if that's the case, we can say the same thing here. Although the color of the pomegranate is noticeable and it's separate from the walnut color, and it's not really a mixture with orlah, nevertheless you can join it to dye the walnut, which is permitted, together with the seba egos, which is also. So they can join up to be nullifying the other. Right? Although it's separate, the pomegranate color, you can still join it to the permitted walnut color to nullify the forbidden walnut color. Okay? Right. Rav Huna, now the Gemara brings that Mishnah in Trumas, and he brings the explanation of Rav Huna. Rav Huna says, Kinemas, this is way to learn it. Hagadalim, the big round rings, start with the small ones, umalim es hakatanim b'mishkal, and they nullify the small ones by weight. Hakatanim, the small ones, join with the big ones, umalim es hagadalim b'minyan. They nullify the big ones, maybe not by weight, because the smaller ones are smaller, but in terms of number. For bittul, you look at the number as well. Now the Gemara comes along to discuss the garment which has dyed, and it pushes away the raya tamam with the fig cakes, right, which are pressed round of truma. The mixture is min b'minai, because they're big cakes, and then the small cakes of figs, they're all of figs, so they nullify the truma. They're all the same type. But but here, yeah, in our situation, a garment which is dyed in orlah, it's min b'she'ena minai. It's not the same kind. Some of the garment has got a walnut dye. Some of it has got a pomegranate dye. You hear that? They're not the same. And since part of the garment is not the same, it could be they don't join up to nullify wherever's been dyed with orlah. Okay. So the Gemara accepts this difference between a mixture of min b'minai and min b'sheina minai, and now it discusses a case where taruvas with the dyeing of the garment is min b'minai. Let's see, where it's the same type. Let's see. Tzvai b'klipe egos shel orlah. You dyed a garment with a walnut shell of an orlah, right? And also from chulin. The chazar tzvai, and then you dye another part b'klipe chulin with a dye made from the shells of chulin min acher, another type. It looks different color from the one of their goyim, which the garment was colored first. You understand? You're now using a different color. What's the din? Do we say, well, all dyes coming from the walnuts is all considered one type, one mixture, and even if the colors are not identical, it doesn't matter. So each dye which is permitted is mevatel the isur. Or do we say no? We can't say all the dye coming from the heter can join up to mevatel, because the isur is not mixed with every single permitted dye, because they don't look the same. You understand? They're different, slightly different grades of appearance here. So how can you use the walnut dye when it's not the same as the other dye? So what did he use? He used something else. He used a walnut dye of heter and used another heter type of dye. So maybe they don't join up. So Yeva Kata, we can learn from the following. He said a mixture of black figs and white figs of chulin, and you got some truma mixed up. So Einim Shachoros, the black ones join up with the white ones, or Malos is Lavonos, and they nullify the white truma ones. And Lavonos, the white ones join with the black ones of chulin, or Malos is Shachoros, and they nullify the black ones of truma. So you see, a heter which is noticeable in a mixture and is not significant is mu'urav. It's not considered mu'urav with the isur. It joins up to a shear to be mevatel the isur. So here as well, the dyes of chulin coming from one type to mevatel orlah, even though some of the permitted dye looks slightly different from the dye of orlah. It's not really mixed with it. Yeah, so it seems it should help. Then one says no. Taman, black figs and white figs, huray lechatchan, you can dissect. If you take black figs, if you cut them very fine, you won't notice they're black anymore. If you make it really small, you won't notice it's black. So he says you can cut them right down, and it won't be noticeable the difference. You won't be able to tell what's black and what's white. Then minadin, it will be bottle the fig of truma, and that's why they were lenient even when it's still shalem. The figs will join with the heter to mevatel the truma, even though they're slightly different in their color, they're not mixed with it. But here, where a garment has a dye with a color which is a different color, you can't cut it into small pieces. That would destroy it. Therefore, it makes sense that the heter, which looks different from Mari Isur, shouldn't join up to the sheer bittul, right? Because you'll destroy it. There's no way you can cut it out. The Gemara brings the situation of a garment dyed with orlah, where you could say it's the same case. What's the situation of a garment dyed from Isur heter, and there's slightly different appearance of the dye of heter to the dye of Isur, and it's like a case where the Mishnah brings with the black figs and the white figs. It's a case like this. Gazim. This is things that you cut the garment, gazizas, into small pieces. Basically, the owner of the garment cuts the garment into small pieces, and then it won't be noticeable the difference between the various parts of the garment. So they join all the parts which are permitted to be mevatel the piece which has got a dye, the isur dye in it. And we bring an example similar to a garment which you usually cut. What's the situation of dyeing a garment in order to cut it? So you got a big garment and you dye it in order to tear into pieces. And you're going to make like a garment, like a shoe. And the people make this garment out of various pieces of clothes. And even if lemaisa, you didn't cut the garment, you could join it together, all the various parts. So here as well, the dyes and the various dyes, you can be mevatel the various parts which are forbidden in the garment. Now usually, orlah is mevatel is bought in a mixture if you've got 200 against it, right? There are differences. Samamonin. So that is your shells of orlah, where you make dyes, which got mixed up with samamonin with similar ones of cholin, but you need 200 against it. like, connected to Isur. Like we find with other mixtures of Orlah. Mei Tzava'im, water that these dyes of Orlah have soaked in and got a taste of it, which got mixed up with other swampy water of Chulin, but Talim Barov. They're nullified in a majority. Why is that? Rabbi Baba Mama. Why is it they're Bata Barov? Because the din is Hanayas Orlah, Hana, which comes from Orlah, is Betela Barov. Is Hana from Orlah is Bata Barov. They weren't machmir that it should be batel. They didn't say you need 200 against it. And since the dye coming from soaking these shells of Orlah in water hasn't got anything intrinsic of the Isur, it's only a Hana which comes from Orlah. Therefore, Rov, once you got a majority against it, that's enough. Masnisa Pliga, and we find a Mishnah that argues on Rabbi Baba Mama. Right, Rabbi Mama was the one who said it's Bata Barov, right? Hana is Bata Barov. Let's see an example. Let's see. Tavshel Shabishlo, you have a food, you cooked it on the fire, which has been fueled beklipe Orlah, with shells of Orlah, Yidalek, burn the food. Right? Although you've got no proper mamoshus of Orlah, but since it's improved because of the Orlah, so it's also because of the Hana which comes from the Orlah. Now the Mishnah carries on, if this food got mixed up with other foods of Heta, the mixture is forbidden, needs to be burnt, unless you've got 200 against it. So even something which is also only because of Hana is not Bata Barov, unless you have 200 against it. And that's not like Rabba Mamo. So in Ma'az's Pasala, we can explain the case, B'Kedera, a pot which holds the food, got mixed up B'Kederis with other pots. Basically, it's significant. A Kedera is something which is choshuv, right? So it's not bottled unless you have 200 against it. But if the food was cooked in a permitted tavshel, it's enough that you can be mevatel in the mixture because it's not considered davar choshuv, okay? Like the water, the made savah, the swampy water, it's not davar choshuv. Rav Yossi, Mispah Sava, it appears that he holds Rabba Mama, Shemuta Lasisken, you're allowed to go ahead and nullify these things for the sake of Hanas Allah, but Chila, like you can go ahead and do it. But Lola Shava, it's not B'di'eved. So you're allowed to cause these things, the Hana, to be Bata Barov. So now the Gemara limits this. My Kedun, so how can you learn now? Something you got mixed up Hana of Orlah and the Heta with Terubas is a majority. Im Yeshbai, so he says like this. Im Yeshbai, if in this swampy water of Orlah you've got Kedelis Vail, the dyeing water, whatever, you got enough to dye the whole garment. As Rayas a Heta Kvisha Eno. Imagine anything permitted as if it's not there. Now therefore, Isa Isur, the power of Orlah in the mixture, Yeshbai, that has the potential to forbid a garment, even though it's like a miut. Yeah, it can forbid a garment, even though it's only a minority compared to all the heta dye. But this thing is important; it can forbid the garment. If you do not have in the Orlah enough to dye the whole garment, as you imagine the garment as if it's not here. Basically, it hasn't got the improvements coming from permitted dyes, and therefore and then the forbidden Isur doesn't have a power to forbid the garment because you can't really see the noticeable improvements, and it's batel in the majority of the heta dye. You follow? So basically, it's not going to be significant what you've achieved. So what does he say? He said if there is enough to dye the whole garment, and you imagine the heta's not here, and that Isur is enough to forbid. If, however, you don't have enough to take the whole garment, then you imagine the heta as if it's not here, and that Isur hasn't got enough to usher the garment. Okay. Now, what do we say in the Mishnah? A garment that's dyed with the dye of Orlah, you can't get benefit. So the Gemara brings the deal about Isur. We learned in the Mishnah and Abad Azar. Taman Tanina. We have learned in the Mishnah. These things are forbidden, you can't get benefit. Hayayim, the wine of Goyim, V'hachometz shel Goyim, the vinegar shoy b'tchilas yam, which used to be wine. V'cheres hadriani, these Hadrian barrels, they're earthenware that again have yain nesech absorbed into them. Yeah. Now we're going to bring a brisa that we said about these Hadrianic barrels, but not everyone says the same thing. Let's see. This din is Rameh. Rameh holds the problem with these Hadrianic barrels. The Tani we've learned Cheres Hadriani also is forbidden. You can't get benefit, and it says Divrei Rameir. Actually, it finishes off. These are the words of Rameir. Chachamim argue. What are we talking about here in the Brisa? What case is Rameir arguing the Chachamim? If you're in the case where you soaked a piece of this earthenware in a food, so then the wine coming out of the earthenware gives a taste, then Divrei Kol Haloshon, then definitely should be forbidden. That's Yisur Chila. How can you allow wine to start going in this mixture? If you sold it to a guy, so apart from the Yain Nesach value, so obviously you're not really getting the value of it. You're not benefiting from the wine. You're not charging for it. So Divrei Kol Mutter. Everyone will say it's fine. That's not what the Bryce is talking about. In the case what we're talking about, where you put the Hadrianic barrel, Cheres, al gabe tafshil, on a pot which has a food in it, and according to using it in this way is also, and according to the Chachamim it's permitted. So you're putting it on top of another pot or something, right? So what's the question now? Why is that an argument? Because according to Rameir, that you can't get benefit from this barrel, are you allowed to lean like a bed on it for it to stand up? Is that hana also? Just like you can't put it on a clear. Let's see this again. According to a mayor who says you can't get benefit from the barrel, right? Can you rest your bed on it? Yeah, so that your bed will stand straight. Is that benefit also forbidden, or maybe not? Rabbi Lazar Amar also, he says no, you can't lean your bed on it. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Moti says you can. Rabbi Yoda Puikum Rabbi Zera Hahan Beged, the garment which is dyed with Orlah, the Tanin and Hacha which we've learnt in our Mishnah. Mao Lismach Boy Kares Amita. What about this garment? Can you lean your bed on it? The Ikpid, Rabbi Zera got cross Lakuvle, on Rabbi Yoda. Why you ask such a question? That's not a question. Amalei says, Taman. Even the one who says with these barrels, the Hadrianic barrels, that mutter, you're allowed to lean on them, your bed. Hacha, with a garment that's been dyed with Orlah, also you're not allowed to lean your bed on it. Why is that? Because Taman, with the earthenware, the barrels, ain't Isurah Nika. It's not, the Yaines is not noticeable, it's absorbed in the thing, therefore you can lean your bed. But but here, with the garment, is Surah Nika. It's noticeable, the dye of Orlah forbidding the garment. It's noticeable, so we cannot allow you to support your bed on it. Okay, now another question about Issa Hana from a garment which is dyed with dye of Orlah. Rav Chagai, Kanachasis min Ilfa, when I came from the ship, Shemais Kada, I heard the voice of Rabbi Yaakov Baracha, who was sitting, Yasib Mathne, who was learning Mishnais, and he started off, a garment that's been dyed with Orlah of shells, Yidolek, you have to burn it. Utanina, and we've learned Natal, Heimena. If you take a piece of wood from it, a splint from an Asherah tree, to make karkad, to make like a sharp piece of wood for weaving, Asabana, you cannot get benefit. Arag by Sabeged, and if you weave the garment with it, Asabana, you cannot get benefit from the garment. Right? Now we have another Mishnah. Yain Nesach Shanafa Labar. Yain Nesach falls into a vat of permitted wine. Kulai Asabanaya. All the wine mixed in, you mustn't get benefit. There's no solution, not for the Heta wine, and why it's all got in Yain Nesach. And we learn Shimon Gamliel said that the wine which is permitted is not forbidden. And he says, you can sell it Kula Lagai, and you take the money of the mixture, but not the Yain Nesach element. Yeah, you can take the rest of the money, but not for that. And with this, you're benefiting from the heter in the mixture. You're not getting anything for the Issur. Now, Shimon Gamliel is allowing you to get benefit from a mixture of Issur and heter. Why did he not allow it with a garment which was dyed with Orlah, or woven with the spindle of Avodah Zarah? There he says the garment is also banal. But there's a solution. The beggars sell it to a guy. Just don't take the money for that part. He asked the question. Rav Chagai came, and Rav Chagai was the one who gave the answer. My kedun. What is the answer of Chagai to this question? Tamam, when Yain Nesach falls in a bowl, Ein derech b'nei adam likach yain min hagai. His wine is asabana. You don't have to worry a guy who'll sell it to Israel, the mixture which is forbidden. So he allows you to sell it to a guy apart from the money of the Yain Nesach, because no Jew is going to buy it off him. But here, a garment that's been dyed with Orlah, and a garment that's been woven with a piece of wood of an Asherah tree, yeah? People don't know. So he says, people buy garments from a guy. So we're worried the Jew will acquire the garment from a guy, and he'll be kosher, he'll be shogeg, isahana. So Rav Shimon Gamliel agrees, because of a siyag, he's not allowed to sell these garments to a guy, even if he's not taking the money of the isur, and there's no solution, he only has to burn it. Okay? To be continued, Rabbi Sai.